是一分多一少，墨色手又在搞你过四楼，你似血雨而来的解药，天不分chân，缺失的心跳，落于人间一笑，有花自一渺渺，似梦绕花里花外扫寂寥。你是不是野火的斜阳，无风闲乱相交的窈窕，题画誓言难描，却顾此不敢惹，花灯着墨香离色正妙。交融调的色调，惊艳的刚好，你我云的正巧，烈焰如一秒，自身飘不闪耀，无需一分多一少，墨色手又在搞你过色牢，你似血雨而来的解药，天不凡尘，缺失的心跳，落于人间一笑，如花自一渺渺，似梦绕花里花外扫寂寥。你是不是野火的斜阳，无风闲乱相交的窈窕，题画誓言难描，却顾此不敢惹，花灯着墨香离色正妙。
Good morning, everybody. I hope this video finds you well. There's a lot of things to talk about, but one of the things that I want to talk about this morning is something that I have always emphasized, and it's rearing its ugly head yet again because there's a lot of people who don't follow this adage. And the adage in my saying goes something like this, and that's what we're going to talk about. You accept things as they are, not as you want them to be. You accept things as they are, not as what you'd like them to be. Doesn't matter if it's a spouse, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a job opportunity, or geopolitics. The other day, I had written an article, created a video. I write articles and create videos. And the video described how Shanghai took care of all those complainers who were complaining. So they're saying, I'm in Shanghai and I don't like how Shanghai is handling coronavirus. And it's just an onslaught, a fire hose of sudden disquietness. And the end result was that Shanghai said, look, these people are unhappy. What's going on? Why aren't they using the application? They found out that they weren't using the application because they weren't Chinese citizens and they weren't even in Shanghai. It was just another blitz, propaganda blitz, an anti-China propaganda blitz, in this case designed for China to loosen up its coronavirus restrictions. For some reason, some very wealthy nation wanted China to unlock DEFCON status and go back to normal. And when I wrote this video or produced this video and people read it, I got a bunch of dislikes. I was like, I'm just telling you what happened. Something nobody else is telling you. Nobody told me why they didn't like it. The end results of having all these dislikes puts it all the way at the bottom on the popular feeds. Well, I don't really give a rat's ass whether I'm at the top or the bottom of the feeds. If you're at the top of the feeds, you get a lot of riffraff. So that's something that I normally don't really give a damn about. But personally, it's disturbing to me. Because either there's a concerted effort to destroy my message, or a lot of people are upset because the illusion that Shanghai is incompetent and China is a brutal totalitarian nation has been yet again vanquished by my pithy words. Imagine that, eh? And I'll just say it one more time. You just simply cannot create this fantasy idea and believe it. You have to see things for what they are. If gas is expensive and you deal with it. You don't pretend that it's going to go away. These are facts. As you get older, you start realizing that you have to accept things as they actually are. How many times have we become infatuated with somebody of the other sex, only to find out later that this ideal that we had is off the tracks? In fact, if you read any of the writings from those on the red pill networks, they'll tell you that when you make a profile in dating, say very little and allow the imagination of the other person to take over, because they'll create a fantasy of what they expect of you. Not me. I tell you, lay it all out. Your goal is not to have multitudes of adoring partners, but rather people who are compatible with you. But that's just me. Most people think I'm crazy. Anyways, I'm going to talk now about accepting reality in terms of shit hit the fan. The global changes, the global geopolitical changes that the world's going through, and why I bailed and why I'm in China. Again, you have to accept things as they are, not as you want them to be. A lot of people believe that when shit hits the fan, it will be something resembling what they have been taught or what they have been seen. And the visualization of that is done by Hollywood. Most people don't remember or study or read history books. So they imagine that shit hit the fan will resemble something a cross between a zombie apocalypse and World War III nuclear Armageddon. I don't think so. What the next shit hit the fan will be like, and it's coming up soon, it's moving up close. The peak period of transformation is nearing us now, is not going to resemble those. Instead, it's going to resemble the historical norms. And that is going to be the meat in this little video here, is the historical norms. What are the historical norms? Well, the historical norms is that the reigning global entity transforms or is destroyed and a new global entity manifests. During the last global change, the powerful historical entity was Europe. This was in the 1930s into the 1940s, culminating with nuclear explosions set off by the United States and Japan in 1945. But essentially, it's a long, slow buildup of the 1930s, culminating in battles in the 1940s. And what we're seeing right here is a similar set of events. And in the last set of events, the reigning powers, some people will say, well, the reigning power, it was a nation, it was the United Kingdom. No. The reigning powers was Europe. Maybe the United Kingdom was the currency of trade, and they had empire all over the globe. But the reigning power were powers: Germany, France, Netherlands, Italy, was Europe. The rising powers at that time were Russia and the United States. After the war, Russia took enormous hits because they were 1 foot in Europe, 1 foot out of Europe, and they survived. America was unscathed. And in general, the rule of thumb is a rising power is pretty much left unscathed. In order for a nation to become unscathed during this period of turmoil, it has to completely disconnect from the old. That's why the United States survived and grew, because it was physically disconnected from all the wars and chaos that was present in Europe. That is also why Russia was, because it was so enormous that it was physically disconnected, while on the edge of it suffered severe casualties. In this next up and coming colossal period of change, what we will see and what we will witness will be the nations that are isolated, surviving and going through the period and growing, while the old empire crumbles and self-destructs. This is a historical norm. The old empire, of course, being the United States and Europe, the new empire being Russia and China. Therefore, if you want to survive unscathed through this period of time, you really should plop your ass down in Russia or China. Usually during these periods of colossal change, if you use World War II as a template, you can see that there was group mindthink in the leadership, that they also held on to various staid belief systems. And you also see that during the war, they did use the most dangerous and lethal weapons that they were capable of. These are all historical norms. And the nations that grew were the ones that were able to disconnect from the collapsing the old collapsing empires, the old collapsing systems. They were the ones that were able to disentangle from it. When I talk about China, and the reason why I applauded China and Shanghai, how they handled it, is because they were speedy and fast. The systems worked perfectly. These people are complaining. Who are these people? Unmask them. They're unmasked. Okay, make a law that that software companies are responsible for those people who are pretending to be Chinese citizens and suffer consequences if that is intentionally decided to disrupt the society. Pretty fierce stuff, but really, I guess, breaks a lot of people's hearts, doesn't it? Yeah, that's what happens, doesn't it? So, in this period of time, me and a lot of my other spooky friends, we decided to go to places that are safer. Everybody's gone to places that are either neutral or will survive big fiasco events. So those of you who want to believe that somehow Russia is going to collapse and be destroyed, or that China is going to collapse and be destroyed because they're not blessed by God, or they're totalitarian nightmares, you're watching too much Hollywood news, because that's not the reality. And as I often try to show people, China's Mayberry RFD, guys. China's Mayberry RFD. It's Boy Scouts, softball games on hot summer days. Though I gotta tell you, they don't play softball, they play other games. But it's the same kind of deal.
桥畔凉雨如烟，花落被针香疏染。风吹金沙，珠帘满卷，灵动如诗几篇。年少自是春风不开，抖得浮生一上贪欢。夜泊低灯，孤声凭栏，无人轻声一言。谁与我长叹流年，等在你眉眼？谁许我圆满 全暗香倏然，风吹轻纱，珠帘满卷，灵动如是几片。年少自是春风不开，偷得浮生一晌贪欢。灭破天光，不胜凭栏，无人起声一怨。谁与我长叹流年？携手共看，暂避不成事，我面当轻叹。临窗各一半，愿落絮自偏。谁与我长叹流年都在你眉眼，谁许我圆满？落雪初携手共看，暂避不成事，我念当轻叹。临窗各一半，愿落絮自偏。
Asked me or inquired whether or not I could ask the domain commander, why doesn't he stop this event sequence? And the answer is that it's engineered into our prison environment. And it's a fundamental part of our prison environment. And as caretakers of this environment, whether they like it or not, they pretty much have a hands-off attitude. But that they do not want destruction of the environment here. And because of that, they try to keep everything under control. They want things to be a bunch of little beds, not a bunch of big beds. So what I'm trying to tell you is don't expect some high technology or extraterrestrial intervention in these event sequences that are coming. That's not really going to happen, not that much. They're going to try to keep it under control. They're going to try to corral the herds. They're going to try to mitigate the damage. They're going to try to anchor the templates to a certain degree. And in doing so, we can expect a period of change to approach. We'll go through it, and we'll be on the other side. And where you're going to be is going to be wholly dependent upon how you handle your immediate environment. And again, you have to see things as they are, not as you want them to be, right? Many people on the Metallicman website recognize this. This is all very mature information that I've been promoting for quite some time. The idea that you accept things and you roll with that acceptance. You don't go screeching and hollering and complaining and pouting like a petulant child. Instead, you just say, okay, this is the way it is. So I'm going to play a little mind game with you guys. I want you to imagine that it's 2 years from now. And during that period of time, gas prices first were enormous, then doubled. than tripled. So if gas prices are $6 a gallon, it's now $18 a gallon. And you are looking at very rarely driving your car. What purchases do you wish you would have had at this point in time? What things do you wish you would have done? You're now sitting 2 years in the future. What preparations, what alterations in your lifestyle do you wish you would have made? You'll find out that in the United States, and I'm talking about the United States, every situation, every other nation is going to be different. But the bottom line is, the best thing you can do when things are changed radically, and for the United States, the idea of rarely driving a car is a radical change. Would be, obviously, being part of a community. My grandmother, for a while there, I lived with my grandmother after I left the Navy. And they did something, these old gals, they all did something. They all would go shopping at the grocery store every second week, twice a month. And one of them would have their son or a grandson or granddaughter drive them to the grocery store. All 8 of these old gals would pile in the car, and all the groceries would go in the trunk. And I was designated driver on a couple times. And that's how they got away. That's how they did it. They didn't pay for gas or anything. They used their mutual community and extended families to assist them in purchasing groceries. They had other things too. There was a a local produce man who would come in his wagon with a horse. That was a pretty rare thing to see a horse in Pittsburgh, but that's what they did. And they would get their fresh groceries from him. He would come up from Liberty Avenue, make the rounds. So they always got fresh groceries. And the bakery, they would get fresh breads from the local bakeries. But certain items you just can't get. Certain canned goods, certain spices, certain oils. And so they would make these grocery runs. Well, that's an adaptation to changes in events and changes in lifestyle. I suggest that during periods of great stress and change and turmoil, that other similar alterations would be necessary, and therefore being part of a community, carpooling perhaps, or generating a carpool, say in a van or a truck, would be of great support to your neighbors and your friends, I dare say. Many of us, any change is different, but it's not just physical change, but it's also change in ideas and concepts and values. For my entire life, I was taught that communism was bad. The idea of working in part of a community is bad. The idea that it's all totalitarian, military, wants to take over the world. Well, that's not the reality, but boy, oh boy, you got a lot of Americans believing this nonsense. And you got to admit, when things are out of control, it's easy to point. See, look at what China did. There's no freedoms in China. Oh, sure, there's freedoms in China. You just have to follow the procedure. You can't be a single subject idiot. I didn't say person. Didn't say you have to be a single subject person. I says you can't be a single subject idiot. Because only an idiot is a single issue entity. The world is a colorful and diverse place, full of different ideas and different concepts, with different drivers, different ways of doing things, and that's a good thing. I don't want to be part of a world where everybody's eating artificial hamburgers churned out by machines at McDonald's. I think difference in tastes and everything is a very important aspect to add to your life. Smells, tastes, textures, all very, very crucially important. I like to see different colored cars on the roads and different styles of cars. I like to see women dressing up in beautiful, beautiful clothes with beautiful, beautiful hair, clean and looking their best. Whether they're fat, short, tall, thin, it don't matter to me. I like it when everybody is clean and comfortable in their own attire. I like cats and dogs of different sizes and shapes, carousing and prowling about. I like little kids playing around. This kind of diversity is something that's been bleached out of the American environment. You go to a suburb in America, you don't have that. It's quiet, like this empty park with roads, sidewalks, a couple occasional trees, cookie cut out houses. Peaceful and quiet and empty. No kids are playing, or if they are, it's just one or two riding by. It's just too quiet. I like it where it's more boisterous and things are going on. And that's the colorful aspects of life. And that's one of the things I like in China. When I say it's a Mayberry RFD, do you remember the scene in Mayberry RFD where everybody would hang out in front of the barber shop and watch the people go by? Yeah, it's China. And China doesn't give a rat's ass what kind of government the United States has. They're not going to try to change you. You want to believe in whatever constitutes democracy, it's fine. China's been a democracy for thousands of years. The democracy was substantially structured to become efficient under Chairman Mao, Mr. Mao, and then again under Mr. Deng, and then again under Xi Jinping. Improvements to systems to make them more responsive and more effective. In America, they haven't been improvements. They've been systems designed for mob rule and mob manipulation by the wealthy. But I'm diverging on another subject. So you have this shit hit the fan, this huge, enormous period of contentious change, and you see it looming ahead. And how are you going to get through this contentious period of change? Well, I have to tell you guys, the way is to see things as it actually is and not as you want it to be. Stop making judgments of what's going on based upon news, based upon Hollywood movies. It's not reality. Having a cache of 60 different types of firearms, but doing nothing about transportation and food access is pretty silly. You have to have a holistic, a 360-degree review of your life and how you're going to handle different things. When coronavirus hit, the weaker version coronavirus hit the United States, you know what a lot of people did? They went into the woods, into the forests, the national forests. It looked like parking jams because everybody thought that when the end of the world comes, they would go into the forests and live off the land. Don't make that mistake. You're either in the forest right now, living off the land right now, or you're not. So get it out of your idea that you're going to pick up a bug out bag when the radio announcer says, "Okay, guys, it's World War III right now. Shit hit the fan. It's going to happen in 6 hours. You've got to leave now." No, it's not going to be like that. So stop thinking that kind of fantasy. It's not going to happen. World War III has been in process now for over a decade. Of course, most of you in the West and in the United States haven't been participating in it. Though I'm going to tell you what, your governments are certainly gearing up for massive levels of participation, and it's heading towards you full speed.
这时间倒数，一切变得重复，剧情甜中带涩，你到底想没想过，还随便说说。骑着单车，感觉难以言说，坐在我的后座，浪漫不过就是永不散场。寻寻觅觅，遇见一个你，一见难忘，可能你都不信，把我照亮，笑得那么甜蜜。无法抵挡，喜欢你变习惯。寻寻觅觅，遇见一个你，总能让我变得如此着迷。从你身后捂住你的眼睛，月亮弯弯是你的嘴型。这时间倒数，一切变得重复，剧情甜中带涩，你到底想没想过，还随便说说。骑着单车，感觉难以言说，坐在我的后座，浪漫不过就是永不散场。汹涌的人潮躲过了喧嚣，发出了讯号，一起散步在天涯海角。从前有颗暗淡的星星，因为你的出现变得更美丽。我们的爱就像没有保质期，遇见一个你。寻寻觅觅，遇见一个你，一见难忘，可能你都不信，把我照亮，笑得那么甜蜜。无法抵挡，喜欢你变习惯。寻寻觅觅，遇见一个你，总能让我变得如此着迷。从你身后捂住你的眼睛，月亮弯弯是你的嘴型。时间倒数，一切变得重复，剧情甜中带涩，你到底想没想过，还随便说说。骑着单车，感觉难以言说，坐在我的后座，浪漫不过就是永不散场。时间倒数，一切变得重复，剧情甜中带涩，你到底想没想过，还随便说说。骑着单车，感觉难以言说，坐在我的后座，浪漫不过就是永不散场。
And so you have to make an appraisal of what is going to be your 360-degree planning for event sequences. And I would argue that the best thing that you can do is make an assessment of your strengths and your weaknesses. And in areas that you're weak, you need to quickly learn how to bolster them up. Also take a hard look at how your life is. How do you obtain groceries? How do you get about in your community? How far do you live from work? What kind of skills do you have if your type of work dries up? One of the problems I had, I'm classically trained in aerospace engineering, astrophysics, and I had to learn electronics and electromechanical engineering on top of my skill set. But there were times when there was no engineering work available, but there was construction work. But I was an unskilled in that area, and the best I could do was become a roustabout or a laborer. When I was in high school, I had the opportunity to take some classes in carpentry and home construction, and I should have done that because I would have had that skill, being able to hang a door, balance a window frame, put up drywall, lay down shingles. Doesn't mean you'll make your entire career off of it, but having multiple skills enables you to have great versatility in what you're able to do. So you see, my background is too damn specialized. You don't get a job over at Sikorsky or Hughes Aircraft, then you're going to have to go into another business altogether, guys. Of course, we all know I did stuff for the Navy, and I did stuff, other stuff. But it's the same for all of you guys. What is your ability? Basket weaving and or what it may be. You have to be able to be versatile. People who are software engineers tell you that sure, you can be a Python expert or know C++ or whatever, but there's other aspects that if you increase your versatility in knowing some of these other systems or picking up a couple of unique trades that open doors for you in certain areas. It's very good to do, very good to have, very important to secure. And another thing you have to get your mind around is, well, I say it over and over again, the news is just bullshit. But the news is really, truly bullshit. You might be under this impression that, okay, well, I'm going to invent something, I'm going to have a patent, I'm going to suddenly become a millionaire. No, it doesn't. Most people own patents, it does zero to them. I own 11 patents. I haven't even got the $1 for transfer of the fees. Patents will not make you rich. Oh, but I'll write a book, and I'll write a book, and I'll become a million dollar seller. No, you're not going to. Writing a book is only going to bring in a couple of little change occasionally. Oh, I know. I'm going to get on there, and I'm going to become a wealthy person because I'm going to have my blog. No, it's not going to make you rich either. I'm going to become a YouTube diva. I'm going to be on Instagram. I'm going to do TikTok videos, and I'm going to have all these followers, and I'll become wealthy that way. Nope. You're not going to become wealthy. You'll be very busy. Might even become famous and popular, but you won't become wealthy. So, I'm sorry, kids. Santa Claus doesn't exist. Easter Bunny does not exist. Okay? That's called reality. Bitch slap of reality. The cold splash of water on your face reality. And it's not going to be easy either. You're not going to be able to suddenly invest in stocks or in futures and become a millionaire. Some do. Vast majority don't. And as much as you want to think you're special, you are just going to be following the bell curve. And you're going to have to accept and realize that that's your fact and that's your reality in this environment. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you that the Easter Bunny doesn't exist, but so what I'm seeing on those comments and responses to anything I say about China or some of my topics is an immediate dislike because it goes against the narrative that everybody is accustomed to believing and that everybody wants to believe. And here I am in China and I'm telling you, I eat well. Here I'm in China and I'm telling you, the government is responsive. I'm in here in China and I'm telling you that it's a merit-driven society. And I'm here telling you that everybody accepts the fact that you take coronavirus seriously because it's in the best interest of the Chinese people. And those that do not, there's a disconnect. And the government found out who they are and are taking steps regarding it. And that totally destroys the illusions that is concocted through the West, that is still being manifested in the West. That still, if you go over to Signs of the Times and the Epoch website and you go through all this kind of other stuff, you know, they're still trying to keep that narrative alive. Where they take a fictional event that's portrayed as true and hammer it over and over again so it's embedded in your mind that that's the way China is. It's not. But in the big realm of things, it's not going to work out that way. Because I'm going to tell you something, and I've said this over and over again. You don't want to fuck with China. I don't know how many times expats or people such as myself have said this. You don't want to fuck with China. You don't want to fuck with China. And people are thinking, okay, well, China will put up a big fight in the South Pacific Sea. No. Yeah, sure, you know, China will be able to do something, but that's decidedly not what I'm talking about. What I'm actually talking about, guys, is you don't want China to be on your bad side because China controls it all. Not just table lamps, not just electronics, it's medicines, it's everything. Cut yourself off from China and you're back to 1834. And yeah, there's manufacturing in the West, manufacturing in the United States. They're making some very sophisticated military equipment, but they're not making medicines. They're not making clothing. They're not making shoes. They're not making cell phones. They're not making car components. They're not making farming implements. This event sequence, this decoupling east and west from producers to and consumers, is you're going to have a lot of consumers doing without. And the wealthy in their enclaves in Washington and New York is going to think nothing of it. Oh, tighten your belt. It's Russia's problem. It's China's problem. And they'll continue on this narrative. And they'll continue poking Russia. They'll continue poking China. And then Russia and China will say, you know what? Here's how the United States will be divided up. This part will be yours and this part will be yours. We'll implement it now. And you're going to go like this. Huh? Huh? What happened? Huh? Huh? To go through this period of change, don't worry too much about the idiots running the country. Worry about the idiots in your neighborhood. Worry about how you're going to access food, energy, be able to help and heat your home. If your home is not insulated, you better start doing something. If if you don't have a larder, better start doing something about that. If you don't have access to water, then you need to do something about that. If you don't know who everybody is in your community, then you better do something about that. This is a truism, whether you're in Malaysia or in Singapore or in Africa or in Mexico or in Spain. Be part of your community, participate in your community, be helpful, and don't be judging of other people. If they have weird ideas, like I may have ideas, you just say, you know what? I'm going to listen to you. I disagree, but you know what? I really like the way you say it, and it makes me think. Even though it doesn't make you think, you just go with the flow. We all have our own beliefs. We all have our own ways of doing things. You just accept people as they are, whatever their color is, whatever style of their hair it is, whatever clothing they're wearing, you just accept them as they are. Good, bad, right or wrong, just accept them. And again, this shit hit the fan is just a term for when things start going really south. It's a describer for a period of extreme change. There's areas in the world that's going through shit hit the fan for some strange reason. It always involves the United States one way or the other. Beirut bombing, Ukraine, Solomons. And so, for you to accept things and to deal with things and to be able to best handle things and to control things, your best bet and your only solution, of course, is to be versatile and have a wide variety and a wide selection of skill sets to rely upon while you and your community thrive in a world seemingly gone mad. The degree of madness could be anything from gas prices increasing 2% all the way out to no gas being available. The degree of change can be anything from having a hamburger every day to being lucky to have a hamburger once every 6 months. The degree of change can be something from being able to afford cat food for your cats to instead fishing and then giving the fish heads to your kitties. The degree of change can be anything from having constant flows of electricity to brownouts at bad times to no electricity at all. The degree of change can be from not ever worrying about going to a hospital to having an infected finger and now you're on the deathbed because it's got infected and there's no antibiotics for you to take care of it. You see, guys, we don't know what's in the future because the change is all regional change. And the best that we can do with this regional change is to scope it out, check it out, make our best assessments that we can, understanding that our assessments may be wrong, but we try our best, and tune out the bullshit, look at things as they actually are. If you think that Russia invaded the Ukraine because Putin's a madman, then you seriously are in a delusional state. Have to see things as they actually are, not as you want them to be. Okay? And you may not want to believe it. Many people don't want to believe it. But China treats the pandemic as an assault on its country. That's why it's at DEF CON. You don't want to believe it. You think it's just the flu. You want to believe that vaccinations aren't good for you. You want to think that 5G isn't good for you. You want to think that 6G isn't good for you. You want to think all kinds of things. But that's not the way it actually is. You have to see things as they actually are. So, how are you? How fixed are you? Hal Turner's over in he's in central Pennsylvania. He's staying at his mother's home in western Pennsylvania, and I'm sure there's coal licks nearby, gas wells nearby, water wells nearby, and the ability to hunt and fish were things to go tribal. And there's a complete breakdown in society. My personal opinion, that won't happen. Not in America. There will not be a complete breakdown in society. I do not believe that. I believe instead that there will be conflict and strife, but society will hold together because Americans are resilient. That's what I believe. And sure, there's a lot of balkanization throughout America, and that will manifest as balkanized communities, which will have its own issues. But as far as American people, I think they're resilient and they are going to surprise the world, provided the government doesn't destroy everybody in the process. As far as China's going to be fine. I know everybody thinks World War III is going to happen because China wants Taiwan. Taiwan is part of China. Get that through your thick skulls. China thinks so. Taiwan thinks so. The United Nations thinks so. It's part of China, okay? All right? It's a breakaway province. United States stands with Taiwan, and then goodbye Washington, D.C. Goodbye New York City, and goodbye Chicago. Americans start launching military operations and bombing Taiwan. That means that China will start bombing the United States. Hawaii will cease to exist. Okay, guys? See things as they actually are, not as what you want them to be. And in periods of strife and stress, and when things are in high alert mode, we may have to make decisions. Decisions on our loved ones, decisions on our families, decisions on our work, decisions on food. Okay? Tough decisions. Nobody here watching this has ever made any tough decisions, or maybe you have once or twice, but they'll become fairly regular during periods of high strife and high change. They will, unfortunately. So be prepared for decision-making processes. And if you don't know how to make decisions, then you should bone up on how to make decisions. It's important. Do you have decent communication skills? Are you aware of what to do if there's interruptions in food supply or in energy? I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but I'm saying it's a possibility. We do know that the US dollar is decreasing in value. The access to energy is decreasing. Yet those bubbles, those big economic bubbles, have not yet popped. They haven't popped yet. Meanwhile, the United States is really pushing for wars with Russia and with China. China's been doing a lot of really glorious sidestepping. Hey, you got to give them credit, okay? But, you know, while Russia is trying to use military technical matters and really wants a degree of acceptance with Europe, China doesn't give a rat's fuck what anybody else thinks. It's a totally different mindset. You see restraint on the part of Russia. You will not see restraint on the part of China. You can take that to the bank, guys. And by the way, the idea that China only has 300 nuclear weapons, better revisit that number. So my overwhelming theme, of course, is see things as they actually are, not as you wish them to be. Realize that all the images that you have from Hollywood are great fiction, but they're fiction. Even if they're based on truth, they're still fiction. In truth, divorces are nasty things. There's no good or bad in it. It's just different points of view. collapsing through a period of change. As you get older, you start seeing that everything is multi-sided and detailed and incomprehensibly complex, and we use simplifications for us to help understand the situation, and it's always helpful. But in the end, you have to make sure that you do not rely on systems that could be compromised, that you do not rely on systems that might be failing, that you are not in a place where suddenly you don't know anybody, or suddenly all that you knew is no longer available. To imagine what a shit hit the fan event would be like, imagine what it was like when you were laid off without notice and you're living paycheck to paycheck. That shock, that initial shock. Now imagine it where everybody else is turned against you, and you look through your house and you make stock of how much food you have, how much money you have for gas, and you have to use your car gas because the grocery store is so far away from you. You have to take stock of reality. These are important. So I'll probably get dislikes on this because I said something good about China. Do you know Cuba used to be the darling of the United States? Americans always loved Cuba up until Fidel Castro came into power. But until then, Cuba had a great PR. Everybody wanted to be part of Cuba. Cha-cha was very, very popular. People wore Bermuda shorts back in the 60s with these straw hats if you were a man. I Love Lucy had a lot of Cuban themes. It was all very popular in the day. And then suddenly it's the evil Castro and his branch of communism, so therefore the fire hose of disinformation turned everybody against Cuba, and there you have it. Everybody was against Cuba. Well, guys, China went from most favored trade status to enemy. Personally, I think that China, if you want to call it an enemy, China would say, okay, no more products for you. Go away. I don't want to do business with you. Go, go, go. That's what they should do, but you know, that's not me. I'm not them. Yeah. Kind of strange, huh? Well, by now, all of you should realize that the news is just bullshit, and it doesn't help you at all, and doesn't give you any information, and derives very little benefit. I hope I was able to help you in that aspect of life. What you can do, however, is accept the changes are going through, are in process. You're going to have to go through these changes. And what's this thing I keep on trying to tell everybody? Oh, yeah. Accept things as they are, not as you want them to be.
It starts with 年少便被认为你们隔壁是过树万店里面的妈妈桑擦的有3管教群岛武士老板猎铁沙场耍要加强印尼的口服最擅长后军种造就人生我打开任督二脉东亚冰河的炸败已被我主角踢开只有少年文化我只用手段今日你只要变得变好
What are things right now in your neighborhood? What are the trends right now in your neighborhood? Extrapolate that out 6 months into a year. What does it look like in your neighborhood? If you're standing back 1 or 2 years in the future, what would you have wished would have done right now to make your life a little easier and a little bit nicer? And that, people, holds the answers to you personally on how you can handle this up and coming event sequence. Me? I'm doing okay. I don't think anything bad's going to happen to China. I think China's going to definitely sidestep everything. Those that want to have a war, they're going to push it for a war. Mike Pompano's talking about putting nuclear weapons on the first island chain. That means Taiwan. If you think that's going to happen, you're delusional. It might have even happened. There might be surreptitious placement of nuclear weapons there. And you know what China would do? They might send a task team to surreptitiously ascertain that that's the fact and then just nuke the island. Problem solved. America protests, America gets nuked. Harsh. That's the way China works. They don't play. They don't mess around. So yeah, guys, it could be a testy time. But then please listen to me. It's going to be little bats, not big bats. Little bats, not big bats. And for those of you who are waiting in expectation for my latest calm Q&As, I'll get to them. Things are beginning to settle down a little bit on the geopolitical scene, but I got to tell you, on my personal scene, I've got a shitload of things on my plate right now. And I'll get to things when I get to things. In fact, I got so many things going on, I'm actually thinking about shutting down some of the aspects of Metallicman. It doesn't seem to be deriving much benefit. It's a lot of work with very little benefit, and I'm not seeing a lot of people enjoying what I'm writing or putting out. Certainly I'm not getting any comments. Forum participation has dropped considerably. Chat is up, but just occasional stuff. No comments on YouTube. I get some stuff on YouTube. Mostly it's from strangers, hardcore Metallic members. They're off quietly. And I put a lot of time and effort into this. I really don't get much out of it. And I think I set everybody up on what to do. I think I repeat myself a lot. I think that maybe as part of this period of change that I should put or close the door onto Metallicman. Maybe I should, I don't know. And go on some of my other business prospects that I have cooking in the works. I haven't decided. I'm just talking out loud. I get occasional person telling me, yeah, they like the articles or they like what I'm doing, but That's few and far between, guys. Actually, most of the comments I get are very, very negative, very demeaning, very insulting. And really, you know, I don't need this shit. And you can say, well, you have to be a big boy. I don't have to be shit. I do something, if it's not appreciated, I stop doing it. It's called life. You adapt. You change as time is warrant. But we'll see what happens. Periods of change, guys. We'll see. In the meantime, you know the drill. See things as they are, not as you want them to be. Be kind, be good, be just. And at that, guys, I want to end up with my basic words of advice. Be good. Smile. Make a difference in the world that you live in. Be good to dogs, cats. Be helpful. Be the Rufus. Participate. Don't be a spectator. And when the situation calls, take action. And at that, guys, remember,